Yes, that brings us to item 12, review of the work plan. The Scrutiny Committee is responsible for determining its own work programme, so we must use the forward plan and the contracts register to carefully consider which items to scrutinise during 24-25. Items must be prioritised to ensure that the scrutiny process adds value and drives improvement. Excuse me. Using the paper process detailed in the pending items list, the committee must agree if the item should be added to its work plan, and if so, at what meeting. Firstly, I would like to propose that the committee reviews the Quarter 2 Revenue and Capital Forecast Report and the Quarter 2 Corporate Performance Report. Both reports are due to be discussed by Cabinet at its meeting on the 12th of November, so the Scrutiny Committee would need to hold an additional meeting as the next planned scrutiny meeting is not until the 28th of November. The Scrutiny Officer has checked diaries and the availability of the Council Chamber, so I suggest that an additional meeting of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee should be held on Thursday, the 7th of November at 7 p.m. to scrutinise the Revenue and Capital Forecast Report and the Corporate Performance Report. Does anybody have any questions? I will propose that we will have an additional meeting on the 7th of November at 7 p.m. to scrutinise the Quarter 2 Revenue and Capital Forecast and the Quarter 2 Corporate Performance Report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Thank you, Councillor West. Resolved that the committee has agreed that an additional meeting of the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee will be held on Thursday, the 7th of November at 7 p.m. to scrutinise the Quarter 2 Revenue and Capital Forecast Report and the Quarter 2 Corporate Performance Report. Secondly, we have two items on the pending items list that I would like to propose for inclusion onto the committee's work plan, namely an update on the Levelling Up Fund and an update on the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy. I suggest that the committee receives an update on both of these items at the meeting on the 28th of November. So Councillor, yes. So does anybody have any questions on these items? So I therefore propose that an update on the Levelling Up Fund and an update on the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy should be added to the committee's work plan for its meeting on the 28th of November. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Councillor West. Resolved that the committee has agreed that an update on the Levelling Up Fund and an update on the Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy will be added to the committee's work plan for the meeting on the 28th of November 2024. We've already spoken about the proposal by the LLR ICB to make a presentation on the winter plan. And it was, I believe it was agreed at that time. It then brings us to item 13, group and panel updates. Item A, the flooding evidence panel. We now have the final report from the flooding evidence panel. Councillor Stevenson, as chair of the evidence panel, would you like to introduce the report?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll start with the end, if you see what I mean. The aim is this evening that we will support this going to full council for approval for the 14 recommendations in there. I am not, you'll be relieved to know, Chair, proposing to go through all 14 of the recommendations. However, I do think context is important. First of all, it will be remiss of me to note Councillor Edwards' huge contribution to this flooding panel, and I'm sure that colleagues will join me that actually there's a certain poignancy when you look through a piece of work that's been a long time coming and you see the face of somebody who's no longer with us, I'm sure here in spirit, but I would just like to have that acknowledged for the public record. I would also like to thank the rest of the panel. It was a huge uptake from our councillors, people who sit here on Scrutiny, but also from our wider councillor population, and that was very pleasing because it shared the work, but also it was a very clear indicator of how important this particular subject is for our residents. Obviously, we have now had a bit of a time delay with this. The general election caused a stop to work. So we are, as a panel, I believe, slightly anxious that we are, fingers crossed, approving this evening and seeking approval at the full council in November, although I'm worried that's being postponed because of by-elections, but we'll see where we get to. What I would like to note very strongly this evening, this has been worked on really hard by officers, by external stakeholders, by councillors. It is a really emotive subject. People understandably worry about their homes being flooded, etc. The aim was to produce a report that was objective, that was evidence-based, but most importantly, acknowledge that if we want to make impact, if we want to have change, then actually all of those key people need to be on side and working together. So this report isn't about pointing fingers. It isn't about a blame culture. It's about saying, right, are there things we can do differently? Are there funding implications, etc.? So I will finish there because I have gone on long enough looking at the time. I would be very happy to take any comments, but mostly I'm seeking approval for this to go on its way to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Thank you. I did highlight to you previously that in regard to the drafting of 2.6 recommendation 9, that I think, and I look to Penny on this, I think the paragraph would benefit from redrafting by deleting the second sentence and suggest the following in substitution. Main rivers are the responsibility of the Environment Agency, while RCC, as the LLFA, is responsible for ensuring the proper maintenance of all other watercourses by the respective riparian owners. And this would remove any ambiguity around the example given of dredging and the associated responsibility for such work.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just looking at recommendation 9, which is that the identification of high-risk areas in the county be included in an enhanced inspection regime. Where there are issues with the maintenance of watercourses, there should be clear signposting for how to raise these with the appropriate body. And then the 2.6 is the maintenance bit around that. Is that where you were meaning to insert that? Not to pass the buck over to Mrs. Sharp, I'm wondering if that's something that we can look at, because it's so we're trying to be succinct in the report, and that sounded as though we were going away from being succinct.
I am. If Mrs. Sharp, with the current wording,
I'm at a slight disadvantage because I haven't got the current wording in front of me. But we have previously reviewed it, and I think we're content with the report, the final report.
Let's ignore it. Councillor Powell.
I was just going to say this has been substantially reviewed and gone out to all the panel members as well for comments. So I think at this stage, unless it makes a fundamental difference to the meaning, then I would suggest that we don't do any more changes.
It's purely in terms of public understanding. So unless there are any other questions from anybody. No? Oh, Councillor Powell.
Yeah, I was just going to echo Councillor Stevenson's comments on sort of a lot of people being involved in the sort of the collaborative way, and I think we've come out with actually a very good report. We'll discuss it at the council. I was just going back to the beginning of the meeting, we had the actions, which Councillor Wise was going to update us on a few things regarding the flooding in the section 19. But from my reading, unless I've read the wrong bit, she updated to say there would be some more information as part of the agenda item. Have I got that wrong?
Oh,
let me just have a quick look, just because. just check back to
Oh,
the
yeah,
beginning.
okay.
I just want.
I think you were right. She was going to update on the relevant items.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
But we asked the question and she said there was nothing further to add.
There was nothing further to add.
That was the question that was put.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be in the actions, won't it?
Yeah, it's the actions from the previous. Just to make sure I'm clear from my own point of view. So,
That was about the waste strategy.
Is it there, Rosemary? Item
Page 13.
311B.
page 13. Right.
Yeah.
I did.
I've got it. There you go. Councillor Powell.
Yeah, so there's information about the recruitment of the flood risk officer post. Yeah. Was action 2.
Section 2, yeah, and action 3.
And action 3. I think it was and there was something about the section 19, wasn't there? Sorry, I was expecting an update on the flood officer post further because it says it covered in the.
Action 3. Oh, sorry, 2.
Oh, yeah, I've got it here.
Yeah, so when she sent this, it said that the flood risk officer post had been evaluated by HR.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was just expecting an update on the current position on those actions, which is the reason for my question. Thank you.
I'm happy, Chair, to just provide an update in relation to the flood officer post. There are interviews next week.
Thank you. So, the Scrutiny Committee has been asked to approve this report before it's presented to Council for approval on the 21st of November. I will propose that we approve the Flooding Evidence Panel's report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. No, any abstentions? No. So it's resolved that the committee has approved the final report from the Flooding Evidence Panel. In closing, could I, on behalf of the committee, thank Councillor Stevenson and all those who contributed to the production of this report for their dedication over very many months. Item B, Housing Associations Evidence Panel. We now have the final scoping document for the Housing Associations Evidence Panel. Councillor Powell, as chair of this evidence panel, would you like to introduce the scoping document?
Thank you. You have the scoping document in front of you for the work in relation to this topic. I had a meeting with officers to go through this, a draft document, and also members of the councillors who volunteered to be on the panel who are listed below. And so they have both reviewed the scope. So we feel that we'd like to recommend this scoping document to be accepted as the basis of the work that this evidence panel does. I'll just give a bit of other information as well on what has also happened. We've actually, you'll see following the scoping document is just a list of the housing associations and the number of housing association properties there are in the county. We have actually written to all the housing associations advising them of this scrutiny meeting and the scope would be presented here and asking for their positive engagement. And we've already got quite a few replies back saying, yes, we'll be happy to alert our residents to any questionnaires and happy to come and talk to your evidence panel in due course. And we also have a presentation from Longhurst, who are the largest housing provider, booked next week, and some panel dates set up, including to get a communication plan together. So as we'd obviously agreed to set up a housing association evidence panel. So I'm happy to take any questions on the actual scope and would ask this committee if they were happy to approve it.
Any questions? Councillor Powell. Councillor Stevenson, I beg your pardon.
No questions at all, but this looks really good, Councillor Powell, and I think it's a long time coming and very impressed with the pace at which you are working.
I think it's clearly...
And not a question either, just a more praise to heap on everybody that was on the panel doing this. I found it really interesting reading it.
Yeah, no, I think it's clearly set out. So the Scrutiny Committee is being asked to approve the evidence panel scoping document. I'll propose that we approve the scoping document. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevenson, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I believe that that's unanimous. So it's resolved that the committee has A, approved the scoping document for the Housing Association Evidence Panel. Item 14, the Annual Scrutiny Report 2023-2024. We now have the report number, God, I can't read that, 96-2024, which has been produced by the Scrutiny Officer. The report details the work undertaken by the Strategic Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the 2023 municipal year. Could I make some observations? Firstly, the timing of the production of this report has obviously been impacted by a couple of events, in particular the general election. My overall assessment is that the committee is operating in a manner that covers the scope of activities of the council and has adapted from its previous three-committee structure. It is continuing to improve its capabilities and member training is being offered. Does anybody have any questions about the report? No. So the committee is being asked to recommend to Council that it notes the annual scrutiny report for 2023-24 and approves its publication. I will propose these recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I believe that's unanimous. It's resolved that the committee has agreed to recommend to Council that it notes the annual scrutiny report 2023-24 and approves its publication. Thank you. Any urgent business?
No urgent business has been notified to us, Chair.
Thank you. And now to our last agenda item. If the committee, the next meeting will be held on Thursday, the 7th November 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Council Chamber. And I therefore declare this meeting closed at 9:26 p.m. Thank you very much indeed for your forbearance.